My presentation on hallucinations. Now, my question is how, when, and why do hallucinations occur to people and who can experience hallucinations? Now, the first study that we're going to go into is correlates of hallucinatory experiences in the general population. This study says that previous studies of cognitive mechanisms underlying hallucinatory experiences have yielded inconsistent results, and so this group of researchers want to learn more about hallucinations using different approaches. Now, most of these hypotheses deal with one method that the researchers were trying to use in order to understand hallucinations. However, the sixth hypothesis is an outlier in the sense that that hypothesis was trying to compare data collected online compared to data collected in the lab. However, the rest of them go towards different methods that they use for recording and testing hallucinations. Now, hallucinations are usually associated with people who have schizophrenia or experience psychiatric disorders. However, it's been proven that it can occur in people who have not been diagnosed at all or just in the general population. Now, the aim of this study was to recruit participants who have hallucinatory experiences and collect a large enough sample size in order to detect the small effect sizes. Now, they pre-registered a minimum sample size of 420 for lab-based, and online data was for 800. However, the final sample size was about 1,513 participants. However, this was before exclusion. After exclusion, it was 1,394. Now, this goes into more of the specifics of what they were look at and those who participated, and they got the average mean of all of them and presented it in a more presentable manner. Now, these 5 questionnaires were designed to be easily answerable, and thus they used this inside their studies because they wanted to use it as an attention check. Now, participants who were excluded, if they answered incorrectly on more than one attention check in their data analysis. Most participants reported a few hallucinatory experiences, and a small number of participants reported many hallucinatory experiences. Now, this goes into more of the results, which is hypothesis 4 and 5 basically show that hallucinatory experiences were associated with false perceptions and a lower response criterion on an auditory signal detection paradigm and with adverse childhood experiences. However, in hypothesis 1 through 3, hallucinatory experiences were not linked to impaired source memory, dichotic listening, or verbal working memory. Additionally, the test provided the evidence that with these cognitive tasks, data quality from online recruitment is equal to that collected in the lab. This study provides strong evidence that hallucinatory experiences are associated with performance on the signal detection task, although with a small effect size. They also found evidence for the contribution of adverse childhood experiences to hallucinatory experiences. In the case of dichotic listening, meta-analytical evidence supports the evidence or the existence of a reduced right ear advantage and a poor performance on the forced attention conditions in schizophrenia patients with hallucinations. Now, the authors believe this study to be accurate because of their large sample size compared to previous studies, but they also believe that further research on the topic of hallucinatory experiences need to happen in order to fully understand the inner workings of who hallucinates. This article answers part of my question in how hallucinations can occur in many people in the population. It also goes into how hallucinations can happen depending on some of the actions you are doing or what you might be listening to at the time. Now, the next study I'm going to go into is brain mind states. This study investigates thoughts and hallucinations using experience sampling, home-based sleep wake monitoring, and formal analysis of psychological data. They decided to study this because they believe the exclusion of thinking from recent studies of sleep menstruation has hindered a full appreciation of how cognitive activities differ across the states of waking and sleep. Now, they used a longitudinal and neutralistic approach to measure fluctuation in the occurrences of endogenous imagery, which is hallucinations, and internal deliberation, thoughts. They did this across waking, sleep onset, and non-REM, NREM, sleep, and REM sleep. The subjects were instructed to describe in detail the foregoing experiences when paged or wakened, including where they thought they were, who else was present, and what they were doing, perceiving, feeling, and thinking. Each of the 1,576 transcribed reports were scored for the presence of thoughts, hallucinations, and images. Hallucinations, as opposed to images, were scored when endogenous sensations were experienced as realistic, akin to perceptions. This goes into more of the scoring aspect of it, really. Their scoring system allowed 5 categories: thoughts, hallucinations, images, thought images, and hallucinatory image. When 2 or more non-congruent events of the same menstruation type occurred, a report was giving a multiple occurrence score for this menstruation type. Multiple occurrences of the hallucinations or images were scored when 2 or more hallucinations or images were occurring successfully. The test of variations and these variables across the states were carried out on a per-subject basis using repeated measures analysis of variance, or ANOVA, and pairwise contrast. Now to discuss some of the results. The prevalence of both thoughts and hallucinations differed significantly across the states of active wake, quiet wake, sleep onset, non-REM sleep, and REM sleep, as you can see in this figure. Moreover, the prevalence of thoughts and prevalence of hallucinations were strongly inversely related across those states. This overall difference in prevalence of thoughts across the states were highly significant. Now, according to this figure, for the subset of reports that contain thoughts and for the subset of reports that contain hallucinations, they were identified the occurrence of multiple events. The pattern of multiple occurrences across the 3 sleep stages differed for reports and with thoughts and reports with hallucinations. In contrast, the percentage of reports with hallucinations that contain multiple occurrences varied significantly across the sleep onset, non-REM sleep, and REM sleep. In summary, in sleep, hallucinations were strongly dependent on sleep stage, increasing from sleep onset through NREM sleep to REM sleep. Separate processes underlie the formation of the 2 menstruation categories, and activity of these processes varies differentially across states of waking and sleep. They reported a progressive decrease in thoughts, but a dramatic increase in hallucinations. Hallucinatory experiences were found to be reported much more frequently from REM sleep than in non-REM sleep. Now, what the authors think about this. The authors' thoughts on their studies are that there are still many unknowns, and they describe some of the probabilities of the meanings of certain occurrences in the brain. However, they believe that these questions can only really be answered by future researchers, and they give different tips and different methods to the future researchers, and also possible sample hypotheses so that these researchers can get a head start in the future. Now, the relation to my question is, this study delves deep into when hallucinations can occur, especially when it comes to sleep and how much of it you can get. They also connect dreams with hallucinations, which I never really considered to be a type of hallucination. Now, overall, this is a general consensus with both studies. There needs to be more research into hallucinations, and as technology and more methods arise with studying hallucinations, it'll be easier to find the root cause and go more in depth for why hallucinations occur in people with schizophrenia, psychiatric disorders, or in the general population.